All right, page 40 in your supplements. Page 40 in your supplements. A little bit of a longer assignment, not so much for the sense of time, but in the number of problems you're working. It's actually more similar to what you had in your textbook most of the year up to this point, but it's a little longer for this supplement at least. Page 40, you did numbers 1 to 25. There we go. Do you have out your work paper if you did any work on separate papers so you can kind of follow along, finding answers as we go? Obviously, you were permitted to use a calculator for the bottom section on this page. All right, and the top section, though, was a little bit of review. And Michael is back with us. He is working feverishly through these problems here. And it said to change each of these to a fraction equivalent. So perhaps the easiest way for, just as a general rule, would be to change the percent to a decimal first. Class, how do I go from a percent to a decimal? Point. And so 50% would become what decimal, class? 0.5. Which we memorized as what fraction? 1/2. Now, to be honest, most of us probably knew that 50% was a half anyway. But for some of these, it would require thinking through the decimal. Like number 2, 37.5%. Well, to make this a decimal, you have to start by changing a half, class, to what decimal? 0.5. So this becomes 37.5%. And then, to get rid of the percent sign, then we go 1. And it becomes what decimal?
3/8.
Well, what decimal? 0.375, which we should have memorized, or maybe you had to go back to chapter 1 in your textbook and look up 3/8. Not one we've used as often. 40%. Well, another way you could do this, by the way, if you wanted to, is just think percent means hundreds. So you could say 0.4 and 2/5, or you might have said, you know what, I'm going to say this is 40 hundredths. Knock off the zeros, and 4/10 reduces to 2/5. Any of those methods would have worked on that one there. What about 16 and 2/3%? What fraction do we get here, Jalen? 1/6. That's 16.66666%, which is 0.1666666 when you go point, which is 1/6. What about 33 1/3%? What fraction is that, Corey?
39.
Which reduces to?
1/3.
1/3. What about 10%? What fraction, Luciana? 1/10. This next one, 120%. What does that wind up becoming here, Bryson? All right, well, let's start by going boink, shall we? 1.2. Now, the 1, of course, is not a fraction, right? But the 0.2 could be made a fraction. What is 0.2? 1/5, right? So this becomes 1 and 1/5. At the very least, you could say, well, I know this is in the tenths place, so it's 2/10, and then the 2/10 reduces to 1/5, so 1 and 1/5 should be our answer. What about 12.5%? 12.5%, Griffin?
1/8.
1/8, very good. 75%, a little bit more common percent there. Ben? Number 9?
3/4.
3/4. 0.75 is 3/4. Number 10, 87.5%, Kirsten. 7/8. It's 87.5%. 0.875 is 7/8. 300% isn't even a fraction, Joel. 300% just means 3. And then 25%, Elaine? 1/4. Did anyone go 12 for 12 on those? Anyone just miss 1 or 2? You got 10 or 11 of them right. All right, questions on those. It's been a little while. All right, let's take a look at some terms here. Number 13, a person who buys an insurance policy, Bryson. Policyholder. Payments included with a mortgage payment for property taxes and home insurance, Joel. Escrow payments. Good. Number 15, the upfront amount a person has to pay before insurance will pay for damages to his vehicle or house. Griffin.
Deductible.
The deductible. Number 16, type of car insurance that covers damages to another person's vehicle if the policyholder causes an accident. Kirsten. Liability. Number 17, the person who receives money from a life insurance company when a loved one dies. Michael? Beneficiary. Number 18, the amount of money the life insurance company agrees to pay when the policyholder dies. Luciana? Number 18, the amount of money the life insurance company agrees to pay when the policyholder dies?
Coverage amount?
The coverage amount. You could also call it the face value of the policy, but the coverage amount is the more common term. Number 19, life insurance that only pays benefits if the policyholder dies within 10 years or in some cases 20 years. Jalen? That's term life insurance. And then life insurance that pays benefits no matter when the policyholder dies. Ben? Number 20? Number 20, what's it called?
Year-round.
It's not called year-round, Corey.
Full-time.
Whole life. Whole life. A whole life policy that covers you your whole life. You also make really ridiculously high payments. Is how it ends up going. Number 21, read that problem for. Yes, ma'am, question.
What was number 13?
Number what?
13.
The deductible. The deductible is what you have to pay before insurance will pay anything else. All right, number 21, go ahead and read that for us if you would, Elaine, nice and loud.
In July.
Take two. Number 21, go ahead and read that for us. Elaine.
In July, at age 28, Stanley purchased a 10-year term life insurance policy with $500,000 in coverage. His monthly premiums were $13.80. In July, at age 38, he had extended his policy another 10 years, but his premiums went up to $19.20. Find the percent of increase to the nearest whole percent.
All right, how do we find percent of increase, class?
Change over original.
So what's the change in the premiums, Elaine?
It's like from 1380 to 1920.
Yeah.
I don't have that answer written down.
Oh, nobody has that written down. What is that amount of money that it goes up? What you got? Corey?
$5.40.
Yes, I believe he's right. Anyone else have $5.40? I am not correct. I have $6.60, and I fell into a trap of subtracting both directions. $5.40, so that means my answer is going to be wrong as well. So we're going to do $5.40, and that's going to be the change. We put that over the original, class. 1380 is the original. Bless you. And yeah, I'm looking at my 660. I'm like, that ain't right. And so what do we get for the percent of increase? When he's age 28, he pays a much lower rate. Age 38, it goes up because he's older. He's more likely to die. Not that 38 is necessarily old, right, class?
Yeah.
But anyway, you're older though, right? You're 10 years closer to death. The odds are higher, so they have to raise the premiums. What is that percent of increase? Your final answer, Elaine?
39%.
Good. 7 years whole percent, right? Yes, so 39% increase. How many 39%? 39% on number 21. Questions on 21? 39%. All right, make sure that's corrected in there now. Number 22, read that for us if you would. Jalen.
If Stanley did not die before turning 48, how much did he spend over the past 20 years for peace of mind?
All right, again, we said that's what insurance is really about, isn't it? It's peace of mind so that if something happens, you're covered. But let's say he doesn't die before he turns 48. Well, then he would have spent 10 years, class, from age 28 to age 38, every single month, paying how much, class?
$13.80.
$13.80. And then every single month for the next 10 years, paying how much every month?
$19.20.
$19.20. And so after 20 years have passed, 10 years on this policy, he extends it on and updates it, 10 years on this policy. How much has he spent over 20 years on life insurance, Michael?
$3,960.
Excellent job. $3,960. We need to take his $13.80, multiply that by 12 months in the year, times 10 years at that rate. And how much is that? Anybody have that number written down?
$1,656.
There we go. And then he spends another, he ends up paying $19.20. 12 months a year by 10 years, and that's an additional
$2,304.
And that's where we get the number Michael gave us, $3,960 he spent on life insurance. Now again, what if he had died? At any point in those 20 years, how much would the beneficiary have gotten, class?
$500,000.
$500,000. If he dies after that and he doesn't extend it out, how much does the beneficiary get? Zero. Okay, but I mean, let's be real. To spend $3,960 over a course of 20 years, knowing that if something happened, your loved one would get $500,000 to help take care of things. And I think that's a good investment. I think it's a good investment for that peace of mind. Number 23. What if, read that for us, Corey.
If Stanley had died in July when he was 45 years old, how much would he have spent on life insurance premiums.
What if he died in July at the age of 45? Well, class, going back to our work from a moment ago, he would have still spent all of this, wouldn't he, in the first 10 years? And he would have been spending $19.20 a month, 12 months of the year, but he wouldn't have made it a full 10 years into the term. If he dies in July at the age of 45, how many years in is that?
7.
That's 7 years in. So that modifies our answer. He wouldn't have spent the full $3,960. How much would he have spent on the 7 years of the second term? What's that number going to be?
$1,612.80.
All right, so how much would he have spent up to the point of his death at age 45? Not that we're wishing that on anybody, but just for the sake of the example problem. Corey, how much would he have spent?
$3,206.80.
There we go. How many had $3,268.80 for number 23? If you didn't have that, get that answer written in now. If you did not have that, get that answer written down now. That leads us to number 24, Luciana. Read that for us.
How much would Stanley's beneficiary wife have received when he died? How much more would Stanley's wife have received when Stanley paid the premium?
All right. And again, when you think of how much more does the wife get than he paid, that's how much the insurance company lost on this deal. Is another way to think of it. But again, they've got millions of people paying into the companies, paying in their premiums. They're making money. They're able to, they can afford to pay these things out. How much would she have gotten? I actually asked this out of turn a moment ago, class. 500 grand, right? She'd have gotten $500,000. How much more would she have received than he paid into the policy? Luciana, what do we need to do?
Subtract $3,268.80 from $500,000.
There we go. Take that number away from 500 grand. And how much more does she get than he paid? What's the family's profit? Now again, he's dead. He's not around to enjoy the profit. But how much does the family benefit from this?
$196,731.20.
How many had $496,731.20? By the way, this is one reason why, guys, make sure you love your wives the way the Bible says and treat them well so that they don't look at you and $500,000 and choose the $500,000. See, I joked when I got my life insurance policy. Now I got to be really nice to my wife so she won't be tempted. So anyway, we move on. Number 25. Read that for us, Michael.
Bud and
Lou
each bought $25,000 whole life.
What's a whole lot more than that?
Whole life policies.
Not 25,000.
Oh, 250,000.
250,000, $250,000.
Whole life policies when they were 30. They both had annual premiums of $2,800. Bud died at the age of 68. Lou died at the age of 83. How much did Bud pay in premiums? How much did Lou pay in premiums? How much did the insurance company have to pay?
All right, so now notice this here. The premiums I listed, class, weren't monthly. They were annual premiums, okay? So Bud and Lou, they're both 30 years old. They buy these $250,000 life insurance policies, whole life policies. So it doesn't matter when they die, right? They don't have to worry about the term expiring and then, their wife or loved one gets nothing, right? So every year they pay $2,800. Bud dies when he's 68 years old. How many years of premiums is that, class? 38 years. And every year he's paying $2,800. So we should have multiplied. How many have the little partial answer written down of how much Bud paid? Actually, no, that's not a partial answer. That's your first answer. We have that written down. How much did Bud pay? Kirsten?
$106,400.
Good. Bud pays $106,400 for his life insurance. Now again, beneficiary gets $250,000. Beneficiary gets a lot more than Bud paid in still, right? It's not, the huge benefit comparatively like what Stanley's wife got over how much was paid in, but still, you're getting more than you're paying in. Lou makes it a lot longer. Lou doesn't die until he's 83. How many years of premiums does Lou have to pay, class? 53. Dies at 83, bought the policy at 30. So for 53 years, he's paying $2,800 a year. How much does Lou pay for his policy? How much does he pay in premiums, Joel?
I don't know. I got the wrong answer.
Well, let's find it right now. Not Joel. I'm calling on Joel. Joel doesn't die. Lou dies. Lou's the one with the policy. All right. How much money does Lou pay for this whole life insurance policy? He pays quite a bit more because he lives longer. Call it out.
1,780,000.
Woo! Okay, hold on now. What are we supposed to be multiplying here, Joel?
53 by 2,800 by 12.
Oh, that's the key. Not by 12. That's not monthly premiums. That's what I pointed out. That's annual premiums. So he doesn't pay that every month. He pays it every year. So just the 53 times the 2,800.
Okay, 148,400.
$148,400.
$400.
Okay, that's what I was missing. The 400 there. All right, so he pays quite a bit more. By the way, if he paid $1 million for this policy, that's a real bummer, isn't it? Because his beneficiary only gets $250,000. He'd have done better to put the money in savings or invest it somewhere, right? Put it in a retirement account. And then the question is, how much did the insurance company have to pay? Class?
$500,000.
$500,000, $250,000 for each of them, right? So $500,000 is how much their insurance company pays out. Together, they actually paid for one of their policies, though, right? You put them together, they paid for over $250,000 together. So insurance company didn't lose too much money there. Questions on the life insurance? All right, so we've talked about protection for your automobile, class. We call that car insurance. We talked about protection for your house, home insurance, and then protection for your loved ones. If something were to happen to you, you make sure they're provided for. Life insurance. All right, let's talk today about health insurance. This is a hot topic in the news. Health insurance. Costs just keep going up and up and up ever since the government decided it was their job to help out with this. Basically, rule of thumb is if the government gets involved, things are going to be bad. So anyway, health insurance. Go ahead and read that very first sentence for us. Ben?
Health insurance helps to pay for a person's medical expenses.
There we go. That's the purpose of health insurance, right? Pay for the medical expenses. You have to go to the doctor. Doctors like to charge thousands of dollars when you go see them. You don't want to pay thousands of dollars, so you have health insurance. And health insurance basically assumes there's going to be enough healthy people who aren't going to the doctor, who are paying money, that they can afford to take care of you. Now, this is where things get a little interesting. This is where we got to really spend some time focusing here. Some preventative services are completely covered by the insurance company. This means you go take care of this service, the insurance company pays for all of it. You don't pay anything. Preventative services are things like getting your annual checkup. How many of you get an annual physical? I know basketball players, I think you had to, didn't you? In order to play basketball, had to have an annual physical. I know I did when I was in sports in high school. There's different routine things. You just go in, you get a checkup, and insurance says, we'll pay for it completely. We want you to stay healthy. We want to catch problems before they become big problems. Why? Because if they become big problems, they're going to cost the insurance company lots of money. They'd rather pay the low price for a preventative office visit than to pay for something bigger. However, the bigger stuff, the not routine preventative stuff, require the policy holder. We recognize that term. Well, that's the patient, right? The patient who goes in and sees the doctor, but they also have the health insurance policy. The policyholder require the policyholder to pay a portion of medical costs himself. All right, so we have the doctor bills. And who pays for it? Well, some of it's paid for by the patient. Again, the patient is the one who has the health insurance, so they're also called the policyholder. From the insurance company's point of view, they're a policyholder. From the doctor's point of view, it's the patient. The doctor bills are paid for partly by the patient, partly by insurance. Two ways in which a patient pays for their own medical care, besides, of course, paying for the health insurance. The first thing you see there in bold, class, is a co-payment. Say that with me. Co-payment. Usually it's just called a copay. How many have heard that term before? A copay. All right, go and read the sentence about the copay, if you would. Griffin?
A copayment is a set amount of money that a patient will pay for office visits, prescriptions, or routine procedures.
All right, that's the key. Co-payment is a set amount of money. You walk into the doctor's office and they say your copay is $20, for instance. Or your copay is $15. or your copay for this prescription drug is $10, or your whatever. You get the idea? Okay, so a copay is a set amount of money. Corey, no sir. A copay is a set amount of money you're just going to pay. It's a set dollar amount. So let's give a little dollar sign here. It's a set dollar amount. You know up front what that's going to cost you. But there's another way in which patients sometimes have to pay for some of their own stuff. And of course, insurance pays for everything else. Okay? So you pay the copay, insurance pays everything else. So if the doctor's like, I'm going to charge you $400 for this routine visit, or this office visit, and your copay is $25. Well, you pay $25, insurance pays the other $375. Make sense? Mm-hmm. The other way in which the patient pays for some of that, read that last sentence of the first paragraph. Bryson? Let's say that word together, class. Co-insurance.
Co-insurance.
Again? Co-insurance. Okay, go ahead and read that for us now, Bryson.
Co-insurance is a percentage of cost of a reduced after deductible and contribute.
All right, so the co-insurance is a percent of the total cost. So if the co-insurance is 10%, okay, you pay 10% of whatever this procedure costs. So if you had a procedure that costs, let's just take a low number, $400. If you're paying 10%, then your co-insurance is $40. Make sense? And then they'll pay the other $360. Make sense? But a co-insurance is a percent. Usually the co-insurance covers things that are a lot more expensive. Major surgeries, things like that. But notice, co-insurance doesn't kick in until after you meet something called the deductible. Well, we know what a deductible is from talking about car insurance and home insurance, right? Deductible class is what you have to pay up front before insurance kicks in. Does that make sense? So let's say you have a $50,000 surgery and your co-insurance is 10%. Let's see if we can do fast math. What's 10% of 50,000? 5,000. So you pay 5,000, but that's after you pay the deductible. Let's say your deductible is a $3,000 deductible. Then you pay the $3,000 deductible and you pay the $5,000 co-insurance. Does that make sense? And then insurance takes care of everything else, which is still a huge amount of money. Okay? Now, you're like, that's a lot of money. That's $8,000 right there. It's true. What if you have lots of medical issues and you're just having all kinds of surgeries in a given year? Well, health insurance actually helps you out a little bit with this. Look at that next paragraph and read those next two sentences for us, Kirsten.
Many insurance policies list a yearly out-of-pocket maximum. Once a policyholder has spent this amount on medical care for the year, deductible copays and coinsurance, the insurance company pays 100% of all medical care that is covered by the insurance policy.
All right, so there's something called the out-of-pocket maximum. I'm just going to say OOP max, out-of-pocket max. This is something that the company sets for you and says you are never going to pay more in a year than this amount of money. They may set it at $10,000. So let's say we have that surgery, right? You've already paid $8,000. Okay, if you have to have another surgery, the most you're going to pay for that is $2,000. Once you've hit that $10,000 number that you've paid for your medical care, insurance is like, hey, we're going to take care of everything else. So, if you're smart, if you know you've got a few different medical procedures you have to get taken care of, you try to do them all in the same year so that you hit that out-of-pocket max so insurance covers all of it for you rather than one year, one the next, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? I've got some relatives who were having a lot of medical issues, and so they'd already hit the out-of-pocket max, and they were getting to December, and there was a major ear surgery that was needed for some hearing loss, and they were projected to do it the first week of January. Well, now they got to, if they can get it in before December 31st, they don't got to pay anything. It's completely free to them. Insurance takes care of all of it. If it's after December 31st, now the whole new year starts over. They got to pay all of this. So they were able to work it out with the doctor. They got it done before the end of the year so that way insurance took care of all of it. But that out-of-pocket max is a big thing once you've got there. Now, look at what's in parentheses. And this is one of the annoying things about health insurance, and this is becoming a bigger and bigger problem in America. It's been a problem in Canada for years. And in European countries where they have socialized medicine, where the government runs all the health care. But it's beginning to be a big problem here in America as well. Read that thing in parentheses, Joel.
Some procedures are not covered by certain policies. Furthermore, some policies list
procedures that are only covered if the insurance company gives their prior authorization?
All right, so here's the deal. There are some procedures that an insurance company will say, we're not doing that. We're not going to cover you if you get this done. We're not going to cover this if you get that done. You got to pay for that yourself. For instance, if you get, some guys, but especially ladies, will sometimes have surgeries to make themselves look prettier and stuff like that because, they put a lot of stock in that. I mean, we as Christians, we understand we're made in God's image and God made us the way He wanted us. We don't have to find our worth in how beautiful we are or not. But to a lost and dying world out there, and that's all they know, that's all they see on TV, you can understand why some people would go that route. And insurance companies like, we ain't paying for that. You don't need that. You may want that, but we ain't paying for that. Weight loss treatments. Okay? Unless there's some relation to your overall health in some other way, usually insurance companies don't want to pay for that. Like, okay, you want to do some weird injection to help you lose weight, look, we ain't paying for that. That's on you. Okay? That's not necessary. But it's starting to get worse now where there's other procedures that the insurance companies are looking at and saying, we don't think you really need this. Wait a second, whose job is it to decide if we need it? Isn't that between the patient and the doctor? But the insurance companies start to get real stingy with what they pay out. So there's a lot of things where you need to get what's called prior authorization, meaning you need to call the insurance company and check with them before you get the procedure done, or you risk them not paying up. That's starting to become a problem. I've got a feeling in about 5-6 years when y'all are becoming young adults, it's going to be a bigger problem. So when you have some major procedure done, anything that's out of the ordinary, you better check with your insurance company, call up customer service, hey, is this covered by my policy? What do I have to do to have you guys pay for this? Because my doctor's saying we need to get this done. Okay, so work things out with your insurance company. A couple of major types of health insurance plans. You'll see these sometimes on TV. HMO stands for Health Maintenance Organization, and PPO stands for Preferred Provider Organization. These plans designate certain doctors who have contracts with the various health insurance companies. Here's what you need to know. HMO plans, mark this, are typically cheaper. HMO plans are typically cheaper. But the reason they're cheaper is they will only pay for things you have done if you're done by a doctor or something that's in network. So the HMO plan, they've got certain doctors that are their people. And if you get it done at that doctor, they'll pay for it. But if you want to pick whatever doctor you want, well, they ain't paying for that. You want to get it done at one of their doctors. So it's cheaper. Health insurance is cheaper with the HMO, but you got to go with their people. You don't get to pick whoever you want. Does everyone see how that could be a little bit annoying? Okay? The PPO plans cost a little bit more. And they'll pay at least a portion of medical expenses, even by doctors who are out of network. Though, again, if you go in network, they're going to pay for a lot more. But they allow you to go out of network and still pay for some of it. So PPO gives you flexibility, but you have to pay for it. Does that make sense? So the cheap one class is the HMO, but you got to stay in network, one of their doctors. PPO gives you more freedom, more flexibility, but it allows you to go out of network. Here's the other big thing. PPO plans, that last sentence, allow a patient to see a specialist without requiring a referral. All right, how many have heard of a referral? Where you go to your doctor and say, hey, can you refer me to this specialist? And so your doctor says, hey, I want you to go see this doctor, and so then you go see that doctor. There's a little, it's not necessarily the end of the world to go through that process, but it's a little bit annoying. HMO requires you to do that, and the specialist better be in network. PPO, if you feel you need to see a specialist, go see the specialist, right? PPO lets you do that. Personally, I like the PPO plans better. I'm willing to pay a little bit more every month if it means I get to choose the doctor I want to see when I want to see them, and I don't have to bother with the referral and all of that nonsense.
How much more is PPO than HMO?
I can't give you a hard percentage. I don't know, I feel like it's like 50% more. But I can't really give you a hard and fast percentage on that. It's just know that it costs more. The PPO costs more. Now you see in bold as well, that primary care physician. This is your main doctor. This is the person that normally, if you've got an issue, you go see them first. And then if they think you need to see someone else, they'll tell you go see someone else, or we think you need to have this checked by a specialist. But the main doctor you're supposed to see is your primary care physician. How many have heard that term before? Your PCP, okay? So that's what we're looking at with health insurance. Okay, the big deal is, what do you have to pay? Well, every month you got to pay for the insurance. Class, we call those payments premiums. When you go see the doctor, if it's a small routine thing, a prescription, something like that, you pay a certain dollar amount. It's usually pretty low, called a copayment. If you have a bigger procedure done, first you got to pay an upfront amount called the deductible, and you also need to pay a percentage of the procedure, which is called the coinsurance. But at some point, there's a certain top dollar amount. You're never going to pay more than this in a year, according to the health insurance company. That number is called your out-of-pocket maximum. Class, what is it?
Out-of-pocket maximum.
There we go. All right, let's take a look at some problems together here. Bottom of page 41, Tanaya's mom has a health insurance policy with a deductible of $2,500. That means big expenses. She's got to pay the first $2,500. She had surgery done, which cost $24,000. Woo! Her policy required her to pay 25% coinsurance after the deductible, and the insurance paid the remaining 75% of the cost of the surgery. All right, so first of all, number one, surgery cost how much, class? $24,000. She's got to pay how much up front? $2,500. How much is the remaining cost after the deductible? Find number one very quickly. Number one, how much is the, quote, remaining cost after the deductible? What do we get, Bryson? $24,000 surgery, deductible's $2,500. How much is still out there needing to be paid?
21,500.
How many at $21,500? Just subtract the deductible off, just like we did for all the other insurances. Right? Everyone good with the first step. Now let's go to number two. How much is the coinsurance? Remember, the coinsurance, class, is a percentage. It's what percent in her case? 25%, but it's 25% after the deductible. So not 25% of $24,000. 25% of $21,500. Does everyone understand that? So take 25% of the remaining amount. How much is the coinsurance going to cost, Joel?
$5,375.
$5,375. How many had that? Right, write that number down if you did it. 25% of the 21,500. 21,500. Again, that's minusing the 2,500 off of the 24 grand that the surgery cost. All right, so here's the question. How much did Tanaya's mom have to pay? Well, first class, she paid her deductible, and then she also paid the coinsurance. What do we have to do then? Just add those two amounts together. Add her deductible plus the coinsurance from number two. So it's a $24,000 surgery, but Tanaya's mom doesn't pay that. And I say all she pays. I mean, it's a lot of money. I couldn't afford to pay this. How much does Tanaya's mom end up paying, Jalen?
$7,875.
How many have $7,875? All right, so number two, remember, for your coinsurance, you should have had $5,375, right? Plus the $2,500 deductible, right? Add those two numbers. That's where we get the $7,875. Everyone got that now? All right, so if that's how much Tanaya's mom has to pay, how much does the insurance company have to pay? Well, they pay for everything else, right? Assuming they didn't negotiate the price down, which actually usually happens. But how much does the insurance company have to pay for this surgery? Well, they pay everything else, right? So if the surgery cost that much, and Tanaya's mom already paid that much, what do we have to do to figure out how much is left? Subtract. Start with the big number minus the little number. Griffin, what you got? Come on, plug it in, boy.
I lost the number for the
For number three?
like for adding these two together. So.
Corey, how much is the insurance paying?
$13,600.
Careful. The whole surgery cost how much? $24,000. Tanaya's mom paid $7,875 of that amount. Don't go back to the $21,500. Go back to the whole $2,400 and subtract what Tanaya's mom paid. Or You could take 75% of the 21.5, but to me, that's the less natural way to think of it, but it would work. It would give you the same answer. Do you have a corrected answer now, Corey?
16,125.
There we go. How many had $16,125? Okay, so insurance paying quite a bit of money there. Yes, sir, question.
So, could we have just taken, I just multiplied 0.75 by
21.5. Yeah, that's what I just said that. You could do that. For most of us, that's not the natural way to think, but it would work. Yeah, it would give you the same answer, $16,125. $16,125 insurance paid. Now, read number 5 for us, Michael.
If Tania's mom paid $6,000.
No, try that again.
If Tania's mom had a $6,000 yearly out-of-pocket maximum, how much would the insurance company have paid for surgery?
All right, how much did Tania's mom actually pay, class?
$7,875.
There's your answer number 3, right? $7,875. But if her yearly out-of-pocket max had been $6,000, how much would she have paid? Don't make this too hard now. $6,000, right? If that's her yearly out-of-pocket max, then how much would she have paid? $6,000. So in that case, how much would the insurance have paid?
Oh.
And how much did the surgery cost?
$24,000.
$24,000, right? So if the yearly out-of-pocket max is $6,000, then insurance has to pay everything else. So Jalen, $18,000. $18,000, right? Because it's got to add up to the $24,000 the doctors need, right? Or the doctors, hospital, all these people, they need $24,000. So if the yearly out-of-pocket max is $6,000, then instead of paying $7,875, she hits that $6,000. She's done. Insurance takes care of the last $18,000. All right, does that kind of help us understand how some of that co-insurance stuff works? All right, let's look at number 2. And read this for us, if you would, Kirsten.
Jillian has a health insurance policy with a monthly premium of $57.30. This past year, she had an annual physical exam, which would have cost $573.98, but was covered 100% by her policy. If she had no other medical treatments, care last year, how much money did she lose by paying for health insurance?
All right, so the only thing she did all year was go for her annual physical. And that would have cost her $573.98, but her insurance, like, now that's preventative. We're covering all of it, right? It's like, yay, I don't have to pay $573.98. What'd she pay instead? $57.30 every single month. So what do we need to find first? Her total premium, her annual premium, right? So how much did she pay? Premiums. Add it all together. What were her premiums all together? And Ben, when you've got it. That's every month. How many months are there? There you go. What does she pay?
$687.60.
$687.60? How many got $687.60? All right, now, how much did she save, quote unquote, by having her insurance? Well, whatever insurance paid for. What did insurance pay for, class?
$573.98.
They paid for the physical. Well, she paid more than they did. She lost money on that deal. At least that year she did. Again, peace of mind. What if something bad had happened? Okay? But there's the peace of mind. But how much did she end up losing by actually having health insurance that year, Bryson?
$113.62.
How many had $113.62 for your final answer? And again, just like with car insurance, there are years you lose money having it. Just like home insurance, there's years you lose money having it. Life insurance, most years you lose money having it, right? All but 1 year you lose money having it. In fact, sometimes all the years you lose money having it. But again, peace of mind. Look at number 3. Builds on this idea a little bit. Number 3, read this for us if you would, Griffin.
Jillian doesn't know it yet, but she is going to
Typo there.
Going to hurt her back in this year and have to begin chiropractic treatment. Each treatment is $160, but she has only a $20 copay. If Jillian gets 2 treatments each month for 5 months, how much will the insurance company pay for her chiropractic care?
Ooh, okay, so remember the copay, class, that's the set amount of money. And her insurance policy says that her copay for chiro care is $20. Now the chiropractor charges how much? $160. She pays $20. How much does insurance pay then? $140. So every time she goes, insurance pays $140, right? And it says she goes to the chiropractor how many times?
2 times a month.
2 times a month for, so how many times does she go to the chiropractor? 10 times, right? $140 every time she goes. That's what insurance is paying. So how much does insurance pay total?
$1,040.
Stop a zero on the end, right? 1,400. Now, number 4. Read that for us if you would, Jalen.
Assuming Jillian's premiums remain $57.30 each month and that she receives no other medical care this year, how much will she save by paying for health insurance?
All right, so in this year, remember last year the premiums were $687.60, right? Well, if it says if they stay this way, then this year they're also $687.60, right? That's how much she pays. How much did insurance pay? $1,400 this year, right? So this year, did she save or did she lose? This year she saved money, didn't she? The previous year she lost about $100, a little over 100. This year she's saving money, isn't she, by having insurance? So the question now is, how much does she save this year? She lost last year. This year she's saving because life happens. How much does she save, Corey? $712.40. How many had $712.40 saved? Because the insurance paid more for her than she paid to them. Does that make sense? We get the idea of saving money, losing money on insurance. All right, number 5. Read about George, if you would, please. Joel.
George needs to visit urgent care to receive medicine to treat a spider bite. He paid a $15 copay. If the urgent care charges $95 for a visit, how much did his insurance company have to pay?
All right, so got a spider bite, needs some antibiotics for it, $15 copay to go to urgent care. Urgent care wants $95. Well, he pays them how much, class? How much does insurance pay? $80. They pay the rest, the other $80. So that's pretty easy. We can do that in our head. Number 6. Read that, Joel. Continue that problem for us.
George's medicine was covered by his health insurance company, but he had to pay 20% of the cost. If the medicine costs $72, how much does he have to pay?
All right, so this antibiotic or whatever they're treating the spider bite with, he's got to pay 20% of the cost. So it's almost a co-insurance here, even though it's medicine. $72 medicine. How much does he have to pay? What do we have to do, Bryson?
Do 72 times 0.2.
Good, 72 times 0.2. And how much does he have to pay?
$14.40.
How much?
$14.40.
40 cents, yes, $14.40. Pretty easy math there as well. Okay, again, this is little stuff, right? Bad things don't always happen. It's not always tens of thousands of dollars surgeries. Sometimes it's little stuff like this, but hey, it's nice to have health insurance for things like that. Ooh, now let's talk about Sarah. We're going to finish up the hour here. Sarah injured her knee and needs to visit a specialist. Class, how much does a specialist charge? Just to see her.
$340.
He doesn't do anything, it's just to talk to her. $340. Then she needs an MRI done. How much does she have to pay to get an MRI done?
$700.
She goes to the hospital for surgery and the anesthesiologist charges to put anesthesia in her.
$400.
The surgeon charges how much?
$2,380.
And then the hospital charges how much for her to be in there getting the surgery done, and their nurse is caring for her.
$1,200.
$1,200, $1,200. Find the total cost of her care. What do we need to do with these numbers? Add them all together. How much is this surgery costing?
This is a scam at this point.
No, that's just how it works. Just to introduce you to real life here. That's the whole point of this supplement. Get you exposed to real life. And these numbers are actually kind of on the low side. How much is the surgery, Ben?
$5,200.
Read that number again.
$5,200.
No, look at your calculator. I don't think it's 5,200. I think it's 5020, right?
Yeah.
$5,020. There we go. It's like, I'm pretty sure you have the right number. I just think you read it wrong. How many have $5,020 for this surgery? That's actually not that bad. Okay, now, number 8. Sarah has a PPO plan, and she decided to go out of network for her procedures. The doctor she heard had really good reviews, and she talked to people and said, oh, you've got to see this doctor. And so they're like, okay, I'll go see this doctor. Well, he's out of network. It's okay. PPO plan's going to cover part of it, right? And so her plan, when she goes out of network, has a deductible class of $2,500. So she's got to pay the first, the deductible, which is the first we said, $2,500, plus she has to pay 25% co-insurance. All right, so if she pays the $2,500, how much is still out there needing to be paid? That's always the first key. Take the deductible off the cost. How much is the remaining cost after remaining? What's the remaining cost after the deductible going to be here, Elaine?
The 25% co-insurance.
No. But she pays $2,500, right? It's $5,020 surgery. She pays $2,500. How much is still out there needing to be paid? $2,520, and she pays 25% of this. Does that make sense? So what's the co-insurance that Sarah has to pay, Jalen?
$630.
She pays an extra $630 co-insurance. So she pays deductible and she pays co-insurance. So it says, how much does she have to pay for her treatments? How much does she have to pay for her treatments? Luciana?
$3,130.
$3,130. And of course, insurance takes care of the rest. So the last, couple thousand. All right, everyone got that? That's because she went out of network. But remember I told you, even with a PPO plan, if you stay in network, you get lower costs. Look at number 9. If Sarah had gone to a doctor who was in network, her insurance company, here's what they do, would have negotiated lower charges. One of the things you'll see one day when you get your doctor bill or your insurance statement is this is how much we would have charged you, but we got a deal with the insurance company because we're one of their people. We give them a lower rate. We give their people a lower rate. So that same specialist, if she'd gone to a different specialist, his specialist rate would have only been class 200. And that MRI would have only cost $350. And they would have only charged how much for the anesthesia? $150. And the surgeon would have been negotiated down to only $1,500. And the hospital would have only charged her $800 if all of these places had been in network with her insurance company. So real quick, let's see. How much would it have cost instead of $5,020 if she stays in network? What's the cost of all this surgery instead? They negotiate the price down to what, class? $3,000 even for this surgery. Furthermore, not only does this cost them down to $3,000, but her deductible would have only been $1,500. Right? If she stays in network, her deductible is $1,500, and it's not a 25% co-insurance class, it's only 10% co-insurance. Do you get the idea with the PPO plan? You can go out of network, they'll still help you, but you do better if you stay in network, and this is why. All right, so we got to change the remaining number, because it's not a $5,020 surgery now, class, it's only a $3,000 surgery if she stays in network. And she pays the first $1,500. So how much is still sitting there? The other $1,500, right? The deductible ends up being half of it. Of this, her co-insurance is 10% class. What's 10% of the remaining amount? $150. So she pays her $1,500 deductible. She pays 10% of what's left, which is $150. How much does she pay for that same surgery if she goes to a different doctor, different hospital that's all in network? Class? $1,650. Now, she may look at that and say, you know what, I know it'll cost more, but I've heard really good things about this other doctor. I think I want to go with that doctor. You know what else you could do? Find a different insurance company for which that doctor is in network. So when you're looking for the insurance company, find out who's in network with who. what insurance company provides the good services, but also which doctors do I hear good things about. Let me make sure the insurance company I choose, and we just had to do this past year, we needed to change doctors, there were some issues. And so we changed doctors, and we were looking for a really good doctor first. Okay, now, who are they in network with? And we picked our insurance company based on the doctor we wanted to see. So, some strategy as you get older, just little things that you'll have to think about when you reach adulthood. Right now, though, it's just stuff to think about. Real quick, flip over to page 44. I want you to look at something. Page 44. We looked at this at the beginning of the quarter, right when we came back from Christmas, this idea of volume. Do you remember volume? Now, I didn't have you memorize these volume formulas, so notice I gave you all of the formulas you're going to need. Okay? And so for this, use those volume formulas. Remember, volume is measured in what kind of units? Cubic units. Might want to jot that down. Cubic units, right? So meters cubed and feet cubed and inches cubed, stuff like that. All right, so don't forget about that. If you need to find some example problems, by all means, you can go back to chapter 5 in your textbook. It says don't use a calculator. That's for the top 8. No calculator for the top 8 problems. The word problems you may use a calculator for. Everyone got what we're doing in the homework? All right. Homework is due page 44, numbers 114. Homework, page 44, 114. You may use a calculator for the word problems, 9 to 14. Don't use a calculator for 1 through 8. Have a wonderful rest of your day. You are dismissed.